Good. Okay, great. All right. So as I said, we will be going over the college application process. And in particular, we'll be touching on some things in particular about Naviance as well, which is the main platform in Baltimore County that we use to track college applications, send transcripts, and letters of recommendation. So let's just kind of get a quick overview about the college process. In the United States, there's over 4,500 degree granting institutions throughout the country. And then in just Maryland alone, we have 55 degree granting post-secondary options. So lots of options for us, both in state, we're very fortunate, and then out of state as well. We're going to cover tonight how to really create an effective list for college. And this really applies to our seniors right now who are looking to apply this fall to college, but also for our juniors. It is not too early at this point to start really putting together a nice list of schools that you're considering. And throughout your junior year, getting a chance to visit and gathering information about those schools. We are going to talk also about changes in standardized testing due to COVID. So there's been lots of changes, of course, across the admissions world and in particular testing. We are going to talk about college application requirements, as well as I mentioned, the Naviance platform that we use for applications. We will touch on community college options. We're very fortunate to have CCBC in our backyard, which gives us great options to their many programs, so we will touch on that. And we are going to talk a little bit about the financial aid process. All right, so when we look at different types of schools, and when we talk to students about creating a nice list of schools, what we want them to consider is not just the schools that we all know, right? We all pretty much know about University of Maryland or Towson, but even in Maryland, we have a lot of options, public schools, but also our private schools. And so even though private schools, and we'll talk about this, on paper tend to be very expensive and scare a lot of families away, but we want you to consider those schools because oftentimes they give a lot of financial aid, a lot of merit-based scholarship money to students, and they have to do that because that's the only way really that they can compete with the public schools and the in-state tuition breaks that we get as in-state residents. So please don't discount those private schools. There's a lot of great ones here in Maryland, and we'll talk about that as well. And then again, of course, we have the CCBC route that has both academic and vocational and trade programs, as well as associate's degrees, certificate programs. And then we have our trade schools. I just have one posted here, Lincoln Tech down in Columbia, Maryland. They have everything from welding to baking. But we have lots of trade programs in Maryland for hands-on careers. You can get in and out very quickly and start making money. So when you're looking at college, there are some things that you want to consider in your choices. And so a lot of times kids will come down and say, well, I want to go to Maryland because that's what they know. But they don't really consider all the different pieces of it. For instance, Maryland is a huge school. And if they don't do well in a big classroom environment or in a large group setting, then that's something to really consider. So once we start talking about that with students, oftentimes they'll say, well, that's really not for me, is that big setting. There are going to be lecture classes at Maryland that may be 400 or 500 students large in those first general education credits. So you really need to consider size, not just the size of the school itself, but also size of classes and the ratio of students to teachers. That's going to be something really important to consider. Another thing is location. One of the things that I always do when students come down and say, I don't even know where to begin. I don't know what type of school to even consider. If there's so many, where do I start? Sometimes I'll start with location because a lot of times kids can at least verbalize where they want to be. And sometimes that's, I don't want to live on campus. I want to commute. Okay, so that limits our choices based on where you live. Some students may say, I want to live on campus. I want to be out of my house, but I don't want to be too far away. I want to be able to get home in an emergency or if something happens. right? So they may know that. They may say, well, I want to be on the East Coast. I can get home maybe within a day, a drive of a day or an airline ticket, not too far. And some kids are like, I'm open to anything. I want to go to California. I want to go to Seattle. That's my favorite place. Or I have family there. So I know that that's a state I want to consider. So location is a great place to start if you're completely clueless about where to begin with your search. Really narrowing it down to a radius around your house is very helpful. Another thing is diversity. So really thinking about what does the college student body look like? Do they look like students that I want to be a part of? Does it look like me? Does it reflect who I am and my friends and my family and my community? And so really looking at the diversity, and all of this information is available online. And I'm going to ask Ms. Pettit to remind me to tell you about a secret that I just learned of a great resource for families that colleges really don't advertise too much. So I'm going to ask Ms. Pettit to remind me of that if I don't remember it right away. Also, academics, obviously. If you have a particular major in mind, you need to make sure that that college has that program for you. So that's just an obvious thing that we want to consider first, and that can help weed out some colleges. Another option is social options. What kind of clubs, activities do you want to be in? The Greek fraternity system? Do you love to sing and you want to make sure they have a choir? Or you're interested in athletics and you want to make sure that they have women's golf. Okay, these are things to consider, these social options, these activities that really make that college experience what it is. Financial aid, right? A lot of times it comes down to money and what our family can afford. One thing I'll just mention, if you have not had the discussion in your family about what can we really afford for college, the time is now to do that. It's not always the most comfortable conversation to have. I don't know anybody who really loves talking about money. And of course, kids are very hesitant to be the ones to bring that up to parents. So this is where parents really need to kind of step up and say, okay, let's have a real conversation. And if you weren't able to save as much as you would have liked, or maybe there isn't a savings and it's going to need to come down to scholarships and loans, or it's going to be on the student, it's better that they know that now so that they can plan and prepare. I've seen too many situations where kids think they can go anywhere. Then when they get that financial aid package and really sit down with the family, they find that that's really not an option for them. And then it's devastating. So please have that conversation if you haven't already. And the last thing to consider is admission selectivity, right? So we have schools that are highly selective, our Hopkins, our Princeton, our Yales, our Harvards, right? And then we have schools that are open admissions like CCBC that do not have a limit on GPA, don't require SAT scores. And then you have schools everywhere in between. So really taking an honest look at what your GPA is, SAT scores, if you're considering sending them, and seeing what really fits for you as far as admissions. So there's several ways to research schools and to find schools. Okay, so I kind of know what I'm looking for, but where do I go to even begin getting a list together? So we have several options for you. One is right in the student's Naviance account. Within their Naviance account, which they automatically have through Baltimore County, they're aware of it if they've been in Baltimore County. They've used it for many different things. But like I said, in the senior year, it really takes on a college flavor. The Supermatch tool is a great tool. And that is basically a filtering program. It asks you questions about location. It asks you about clubs or activities or sports that you want to be involved in, what your major is you're looking for, a minor if you're looking for it, how much you want to spend, admission selectivity, diversity on campus. Do you want on-campus housing, study abroad? Goes on and on and on. So you can put as much in the filters as you want, and it's really going to give you a great list of schools that match what you're looking for. And I don't love everything about Naviance, and I think most counselors would agree. However, the Supermatch tool is very, very good. So that's one place that the students can go. Another tool very similar to the Supermatch is the College Board. It's called Big Future. All you have to do is Google College Board Big Future, and you're going to get to a great website, very similar, filters that you can put in that's going to come up with a nice list of schools. And both of those tools, when you get the list of schools, you can then click on individual schools and get information about that particular school. With Naviance, in fact, you can even get down to scattergrams to find out how many students at your particular high school were, applied to that school, were accepted, denied, waitlisted to that school. So there's some really cool data within those sites. The Princeton Review has been around forever. Great site. They come out with usually a 365 best schools every year. Great publication, lots of free information. Again, you just Google Princeton Review and you'll get to it. Niche is a lovely site. I use this quite a bit when I just need snippets about a school, but they give really kind of grade-wise, A+, B-, C+ about a school based on what students say about the school. So that's kind of a nice feature. US News and World Report, not everything is free on their site, so be careful about that, but they do have a lot of free information. They usually rank schools every year. In fact, the new one just came out, ranking liberal arts schools, etc. So some good information about that. Of course, going to the college's website, right? The school is going to advertise themselves. Remember, these are businesses. They are there to try to entice you to come to their school. They are going to have beautiful pictures, beautiful people all on the site. And of course, all of those lovely brochures and postcards that you've gotten at your house that makes the school look wonderful. But always, as with everything, buyer beware. Please go and visit schools, which we're going to talk about. Make sure that that brochure really lives up to its promises. Always request to be added to a mailing list. You can certainly go on the school's website, get on their mailing list, and get updates, via email or paper copies of things that get sent to you. There are blogs and vlogs out there, of course, about colleges. YouTube has plenty. You can always Google that. They're out there to be had. And then the college's virtual tour feature. So especially in the time of COVID, this became a big thing where not all colleges had virtual tours available. Now pretty much every college offers it. And it's a great tool, and I'm glad that they have it, and they most likely will keep it. This is great also for schools that are far away and that you may not get a chance to visit. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So here we are talking about visiting the college. There is nothing that takes the place of personally getting your feet on the college campus. And I say this to kids all the time. You would not buy a $120,000 sports car without taking it for a test drive. And you'd bring along your best friend and you'd ask your mom to get in and you'd test drive it, right? Because it's such a big investment. You would not spend that money without really making sure this fits good, this feels good, it drives the way I want it to, has all the features I want it to. College is very similar. Do not go off of just a brochure and not visit that college. Some students choose to kind of visit beforehand before they apply, and that's fine. Some students, for maybe schools that are further away, may want to first, apply, see if they get in, and then decide to visit the ones that they were accepted to make a final decision. So you really can do both. Sometimes summer vacations are great times to kind of, if you're going to be in South Carolina anyway, on your way down, you could visit several colleges, map out a good route to visit some schools, make it a weekend of it. If you can go when students are present, that's best because you really get a chance to see the vibe of the school. But that's not always possible. So if it has to be in the summer, that's okay. Even if you don't have an appointment, a great idea is to stop in the admissions office and introduce yourself. Give them your name and your information. A lot of times schools, just for stopping in and visiting, will give you an application fee waiver if you decide to apply. There are some schools, even Ferrum is one down in Virginia, for instance, that will give you a scholarship of $1,000 if you had visited the school and you end up enrolling there. So lots of incentives for having them know who you are. Again, like I said, if you're interested in a school far away, you could do the virtual piece. Taking notes on each school is really crucial. I can't tell you, I just went through this process. My daughter's now a sophomore at Salisbury, but we just went through this process, not too long ago. And it is very easy to start, they all start jumbling in your mind and you forget exactly like What was the one that had the Chick-fil-A and the Starbucks and certain things that you want to remember? So take a notebook, take something with you where you can jot down notes as soon as you go along on the tour or as soon as you get in the car so it remains fresh in your mind. So at in Baltimore County schools, we're really lucky. All of the high schools have this option where colleges come to us. So back during COVID, it was all virtual, but now we're starting to open them up a little bit. For instance, Perry Hall has both, and I know Carver does the same, where they have both in-person and virtual visits. So some colleges are not completely open yet, and they'll do virtual visits with students. Some schools are sending admissions reps into our buildings, meeting with either one-on-one or small groups of students. Now, where you go to sign up for that? Typically, if the school is using what's called rep visits, it is linked with the student's Naviance account. It is on the homepage of Naviance under the What's New app, and you just go onto there and it lists all the colleges that are coming. Schools have different ways that they do it. For us right now in the fall, we're really focusing on seniors kind of have first priority, but I'm always happy if a junior wants to join the visit, even if it's now in the fall, that's fine. Some schools only keep their juniors, they have those in the spring when the colleges come. But this is a great way for you to get in front of an admissions rep of that college, that you can meet them face to face, ask them questions about the programs. And let me tell you something, these admissions reps, they remember students, and that's their job. So if you make a good impression, a lot of times that admissions rep may be the person who is looking at your application down the road. So it is a great idea to get in front of that admissions rep, even if it is virtual. It's a live virtual meeting, in that you're there with that admissions rep and really putting your best foot forward, asking good questions and getting good information. Okay. So while you're on tours, also if you're in virtual meetings or in-person meetings at the schools, you can ask a lot of really good questions. They're going to probably give you a little short presentation that will answer a lot of things, but I love these questions, particularly if you're on the campus and you're visiting and you have students around, either students you can ask or students who are tour guides. Students are really great because they'll be honest. They kind of don't have a filter, which is kind of lovely. So you can ask questions of them. What do you do for fun on the weekends? Do most kids stay around on campus, or is this more of a commuter campus? Do most kids live here? If you're going to be living there, you want things to do and people around you. Where do the freshmen live? Are freshmen required to live on campus? A lot of times that is the case. Talking about the food plans, you want to know about the food. I always did. So you want to know, like, what are my options? What are the meal plans like? What types of different dining options do you have on campus? And they've really upped their game with this, really like they're really allergy conscious, vegan, gluten-free. They really have answered the call as far as like the food options for students. One thing I think that's really important to ask is, do professors teach the classes? In very large research universities, such as I went to Pitt. So University of Pittsburgh is a very large research university. And oftentimes what would happen, because the professors were involved in research, not as much in teaching, they would have teaching assistants or assistant professors teaching the class. Well, if I knew what I know now, I probably would have asked that question, because you're paying a lot of money. The idea is you want to be taught by the professionals in that field, not their teaching assistant. So to me, you're paying a lot of money, you want to get expertise. So I think that's a really good question, particularly for parents to ask on a tour or of an admissions office. Will you have an advisor? Will you be assigned an advisor? How often will you meet with that person? Will you meet once a semester? And if you need to talk with them more often, are they going to be available for you? And like I said, do the students stay on the campus on the weekends? What are the fun things that students are involved in? Also, when you're visiting, go check out the surrounding town, the surrounding areas. College campuses can be quite compact, and really students just stay on there in certain campuses. Other campuses, there might be not much around. And if you're looking for a bustling city, but you're up in a rural area where really the only thing there is the college, that's going to help you make a decision about that. So you really want to try to finalize and get a nice solid list before your senior year. Now, for anybody who's a senior this year and you don't have a list yet, you've got some ideas, you're okay. I don't want to freak you out. But as a junior, you can really gather that information this year and have a nice solid list beginning of your senior year. So a lot of students will say, well, how many schools should I apply to? I say 4 to 8. I've had students apply to 20, 25. Would I recommend that? I would not. Number one, if a student comes down with 25 different schools, my first question is, do you really know what you're looking for in a college? Have you visited all 25 schools? All of them have your major. You've gone in the dorms, you've sat in on classes, you've met with a professor, has all the activities you look for. When you really start to dig in, you realize that no, that's not the case. They're just kind of like throwing things and seeing what sticks on the wall. Rather than doing that, just really create a solid list of schools. And so you can look at it as, two nice academically safe or financially safe schools, schools that are maybe a little bit below academically where you are that you will get into or most likely get into. Maybe 2 target or good fit schools, or a couple, even 3 or 4 that you feel like, yeah, I visited here, I really could be happy here. Academically, they're right where I am. Some public and private schools as well, and also some reach schools. Maybe financially, they seem really expensive and you're not sure how you pay for them, or academically, maybe they're a bit above where you are. It's okay to have a few of them there as well. A note about private and public schools. Even if you want out of Maryland, I wanted out of Maryland, and that's why I went out of Maryland, but I'm back. So we'll see how, that all turns out. But even if that's not what you're looking for, you don't want to stay in Maryland, I would still really encourage you to have at least one Maryland public university in your list. It's going to give you a good bellwether when you get your financial aid package to really, compare those schools and see, okay, in-state tuition at a public university is this versus maybe a private school in or out of state or an out-of-state school. But just having a nice mix of those. And then, of course, any schools that you visited, that you love, that you would be happy to go to. Okay. And just as an FYI, and we'll probably get to this, but as of now, college applications are open for our current seniors. So let's talk a bit about testing. So testing took a real hit with COVID, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of schools have been looking to go test optional. A lot of had moved that direction because they realized that a test score really wasn't the greatest indicator of how successful a student could be on their college campus, and that they could look at other things, including the whole transcript, the difficulty of the classes they've taken over the course of the high school career, their activities, their leadership potential, their community service, etc. So a lot of schools had started to move this direction. COVID came and moved many, many more in this direction. So even for this year, for our seniors, even though they've had some opportunities to take the SATs, many, many schools, most schools that our students are applying to are test optional. Now, I want to just mention that test optional does not mean test blind. There are schools that are test blind, meaning they don't want scores at all from anyone. They won't accept scores. Test optional means I have the option as a student of whether or not I want to send my SAT or ACT scores. Colleges do not care which one you send. Okay, so to them, it does not matter. So whether you test, well or not, then you can decide, do I want to send these? So the question now, I would say, is, and students will ask this, number one, should I take the SAT? Now, for our seniors, we're getting down to the wire here. If you did not register for the October 2nd SAT as a senior, that may be one of your last chances to take it if you're doing early action deadlines. And we'll talk a bit about what that means. But really, these schools are going test optional, and you have the option. If you want to see if a school is test optional, you can go to fairtest.org. Great resource, great website. They really keep up to date. You can search by state, different schools, and see if they're test optional for your year. We do not know right now about our current juniors, what that landscape will look like. As we get information, we will certainly pass that along to you. Now, but what I say is if a student says, well, really, should I take the SAT or should I submit scores if my scores are good? I would say yes. I think of it this way. If you and another candidate are applying to a school and it's test optional and you don't send your scores and they do, and all other things being equal between the two of you, very similar GPA, profile of activities, etc., but they submit a very solid SAT score, there is a chance that that spot could go to them. Now, just keep in mind though, the test optional does give you some options, right? If you don't test well, if your scores are well below the average of that school, then sending it to the school is not going to help you. But know that if you don't send your scores, everything else in your application becomes all that more important, right? So your essay, your letters of recommendation, obviously your grades are number one all the time, okay? And so those things become more important if you do not send your scores. So just keep all of that in mind. As I mentioned, we do have an administration of the SAT coming up on a Saturday in Baltimore County. I know that Perry Hall is offering it, as well as many different BCPS schools. The deadline has passed for that, even the late registration. I'm just letting you know that that is happening. The next one is November 6th. So if you're a senior and you're not applying with a November 1st or November 15th deadline, it is possible that you can take the November SAT, get your scores back in time, perhaps for a December or a January, February deadline. Okay. The PSAT will be happening in Baltimore County on the 26th of October, and that's for 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. It happens during the school day. Your child, it's free. Your child will automatically be registered for that and take that. And it is something that is very helpful. Get prepared for the SAT. Also, the National Merit Scholars, if a child does very, very well, they can be eligible for very large sums of money for scholarship money. If you need to prepare for the SAT, a great option is Khan Academy. It is linked with your College Board account. So once a student takes the PSAT, they have an active College Board account. This College Board account will follow them. This is where PSAT scores will be, but when they take the SAT, their scores will be loaded in there as well. College Board also houses AP scores as well. So the advanced placement courses, if a student chooses to test in those, again, the College Board is the one that houses those scores. When a student is applying to college and needs to send scores to a college, you must do it directly from the testing site. So for SAT, you go directly to the College Board, you log into your account, and you send your scores from your College Board account. For ACT scores, which we don't offer as a regular administration through BCPS, but you can take it, and it does happen at BCPS and surrounding schools. Same thing, you would log on to your ACT account and send it directly from that institution. We do not house scores that we can send to colleges, and students cannot send them themselves. They have to be direct from the institution. But Khan Academy is great. It's linked in your College Board account. Once you take the PSAT, you can get personalized practice. It'll look at your PSAT scores and use those scores to personalize practice on your weak areas. They've even done some studies where 20 hours worth of prep on Khan Academy gives students an average of 115 score point boost in the SAT. That's pretty significant. Okay. Again, taking the SAT at least 2 times. I probably would not say more than 3. Your scores tend to level out. As juniors, you will take the SAT typically in the spring, in March, during a school day administration. It is free through BCPS, which is wonderful, but then I would definitely suggest taking it again. either in the summer or early fall. There are fee waivers available. If you qualify for free or reduced lunch, please reach out to your counselor or your college counselor at school. We can get you waivers that waive the cost of the SAT and ACT. And again, like I mentioned, latest SAT for students who are applying early action, we'll talk about that deadline in a second, should be really in October. So deciding if you want to test again, ACT, you would go to act.org. There is an October 23rd and a December 11th test coming up. It's $60 and then $85 with the writing. The SAT, the next one's coming up, are November 6th and December 4th, and that is $55. The SAT essay is no longer offered on any of the Saturday administrations. It is possible that a school system may include it in the school day administration. And we do not know as of yet if BCPS will be including the essay. But as far as taking it on a Saturday, it is no longer offered. And no more subject tests. Those are no longer offered in any venue. Okay, so just saying the College Board account, you will already have that when you take the PSAT. You will set that up in school in order to take the PSAT this fall. Please, please, please keep your username and password in your phone. I'm sure Ms. Pettit would agree. There's so much time spent trying to recover passwords and usernames with College Board, and we really spent a lot of time doing that where it really is, could be spent doing other things much more productive. So please start keeping track of these passwords, these usernames, because you are going to need them again and again. You're going to send your scores to the colleges, like I said, using this account. When you register for the SAT, you can opt to send your scores up to 4 colleges for free. Now, this is where the College Board gets you a little bit. I don't love this option because then you're sending your scores sight unseen, right? You don't even see your scores yet, and you're sending it to a college. If you can do it, I would wait till you get your scores back, see what you've gotten, decide if you want to send them to a college, decide if you're applying test optional or not, and then decide to send the scores. The downside of that is then you're paying per score send, unless you have a waiver. If you don't have a waiver, you're paying $12 per school to send your scores to the schools. Many schools will super score as well. So let's say you take the SAT 2 times. You did better on the math the first time than you did on the second time. You can send both sets of scores. The college will take your best math score and your best reading writing, and they will combine that in a super score and use that. In order to find out if a college does that, really try to go onto the admissions page. Oftentimes they will tell you within the admissions requirements whether or not they super score, and you can always call the admissions office and simply just ask them. Okay, as we mentioned, applications are open. They open on August 1st and begin. Now, no student at this point can completely apply yet. And the reason why is because we wait on BCPS to send us downloads of the official transcripts. We have not gotten those yet. We are hopeful by the end of September that they will be downloaded to the individual schools, and then we load them into the students' Naviance accounts. You cannot see your official transcript. It is just housed in there for us to send to the colleges that you're applying to. However, if you need a copy of your unofficial transcript, you want to see kind of what's being sent, you certainly can email your counselor, message them in Schoology, ask them for an unofficial copy of the transcript. But the official copy is going to come from us directly to the college. Colleges often have multiple deadlines. So a college may have an early action, an early decision, and a regular decision deadline. So let's talk about what those mean. Early action deadlines can occur anywhere from November 1st through mid-December. November 1st is a very, very popular college early action deadline. So if you're a senior and you're looking to apply November 1st, you basically have a month to get everything done and submitted to your colleges. Okay? Early decision is binding. Not many students do this for obvious reasons, because if you apply to a school early decision, you can only apply to one school using an early decision application. And it's binding, meaning it's a contract. You sign it, your parents sign it, your counselor signs it. And if you get accepted to that school, you must go to that school. Oftentimes, that's without seeing the financial aid package. So maybe you've applied to some other schools, early action, and they give you great financial aid, but you've applied to this one school, early decision. Typically, even regardless of financial aid, you must go and attend that school. Now, sometimes there are some provisions, they'll let you get out of it, not easily, but if the financial aid really does not suffice, and sometimes there's provisions in the contract. But again, read those contracts very carefully before signing them. Talk with your counselor if you're not sure if you should do that, and we can really help you with that process. But you can only apply to one school via early decision. Early action, you can apply to as many schools that have an early action deadline. Regular decision, for parents who are around my age, this is kind of the old school timeline of college applications in the late winter, early spring. Regular decision is just a later deadline. You can apply to as many regular decision schools as you want. Rolling is all year long. Opens August 1st. As applications come in, they accept or deny. I want to encourage you though, if you're thinking about which one is really going to give you the most benefit, it is early action. And typically that's for three reasons. One is you're going to get a decision quicker. So you apply early, you're going to find out oftentimes before winter break if you've been accepted. Number two is admissions, better chance of being admitted to a school using early action. In fact, the University of Maryland, 75 to 80% of their freshman class that were admitted used early action applications. So it is significant. The third reason is scholarship money. So every school has a pot of money that they divvy out as students get accepted, and they offer merit-based aid, meaning something special about your application. Maybe you had a great SAT score. And so as an enticement for you to come to my school, I may offer you some scholarship money. But if I divvy that out to you, I still won't know if you're coming, maybe even until May 1st. I can't give it to someone else who's applying later. So your best bet with early action is that money component and getting that financial aid. Oh. Okay, so as I mentioned, using Naviance for college applications, it really is the main portal. You cannot apply to a four-year college in Baltimore County without using your Naviance account. You have to have all the schools you're applying to, including CCBC, listed in your Naviance Colleges I'm Applying To list. This is also where you're going to request your transcripts to be sent, and you'll also have a counselor recommendation. When you request your transcripts, it triggers the counselor to write you a recommendation letter. Also, teacher recommendations. If you have not already and you're a senior, you definitely want to talk to at least two teachers. Two is a good number, at least one core area teacher, math, science, social studies, English. Ask them if you can in person if they would write you a letter. If they say yes, you're going to go back into your Naviance account and request those letters electronically. It will send it electronically to the teacher. They'll write your letter. It gets housed in your Naviance account, and we send it when we get close to your deadline. You can't view the teacher letters, though, in your account. The other thing is indicating the correct deadline. This is super important. So in your colleges I'm applying to list in Naviance, when you add a college, you need to tell Naviance two things. Number one, when you're applying. Remember, we talked about those several different deadlines. Well, you've got to tell Naviance which deadline you're using for that college. If by mistake you put a regular decision deadline and you really meant early action, we don't know that as counselors. All we see is that January 20th deadline. And so we're going to send your transcript and your letters at that point, causing you to miss your deadline. So please double check, triple check the deadlines in Naviance. Naviance will also need to know how you're applying. So we're going to talk about different types of applications that colleges use and why you have to indicate that. Okay. All right, so students can log in to Naviance. If you're in your BCPS Google account, you can go to naviance.com. You're logging in via what's called Clever. So you're not putting in another username and password. You're logging in via Clever because it's going to use your Google username and password credentials to go ahead and log in there. Parents can also use the same site, but you're logging in as a parent. If you are not already registered for Naviance and you need a registration code, simply email your college counselor or your child's counselor, and they can get you a Naviance code to get you in so that you can see your child's Naviance account. And then you would just go to the I need to register link. As I mentioned, all documents are sent to colleges through your Naviance account. How are we doing on time, Ms. Pettit? Great. Okay. So transcripts, just a real quick mention. Transcripts sent to colleges really are all especially for early action or these early deadlines, are only going to have grades, cumulative grades from 9th, 10th, and 11th grade only. So basically you're being judged on your grades for 3 years versus 4. They will see the classes that you're taking listed, but right now we don't have any grades for 12th grade. So that cumulative GPA, that cumulative QPA is based on 3 years worth of grades. Okay. They're also going to see the rigor. That's important to colleges. How difficult are the classes that you've taken? Have you taken the easy way out? Have you not challenged yourself? They want to see that you've challenged yourself each year. Again, ask your counselor if you need a copy of your unofficial transcript. Recommendations, think about who you will ask. Seniors, you should be asking teachers now. Like I said, at least one core area teacher. You want to give plenty of notice. So at least 3 weeks notice. Teachers do not have to write letters of recommendation. They do it out of the kindness of their hearts, wanting to help students out. Okay, so please give them plenty of time to write a really good letter. Do not ask a teacher the day before or a couple days before a letter or your application is due. Your counselor will also write you a letter, as I mentioned, when you request your transcripts in Naviance. So your essay, very important in the college application process. Again, even more important if you're applying test optional. Colleges use the essay for a number of things. One, they really want to see that you are able to communicate in writing. Parents, please do not write your student's essay. Okay, I know I really shouldn't have to say that, but there are plenty of parents that do. Admissions reps know it. They know when an adult has written it versus a student. So please do not do that to your child, okay? And students, take time to write your essay. This is not a cram it into a one night, like you're writing a paper and submitting it the next day. Start in the summer before your senior year. Hopefully your English teacher will be available to help you. A lot of English classes in the county will assist with essay writing in the junior year or in the beginning of your senior year. Proofread, have at least 2 or 3 people view it. Send it to your English teacher, have them look at it for grammar. Send it to your college counselor, have them look at it as an admissions person from an admissions perspective, okay? The essays are always located inside the application, whether you're using Common App, whether you're using the college's own application, the essay is always included in that application. Okay. Common App is one application that over 900 schools use. And the beauty of Common App is if you use it, you can apply to several schools at once, only doing one essay. So many students use the Common App, and I would recommend using the Common App if you can. commonapp.org, even as a junior, you can go ahead and create an account for yourself. Just don't apply to colleges till after August 1st. Student athletes, if you're looking to play sports, this is like Division 1, 2, or 3 in college, you need to register with the NCAA, okay, and go ahead and request your transcript to be sent to the NCAA. Contact coaches at the schools, send them highlight reels, send them videos. It is incumbent on you to really, show yourself off to these coaches, okay? But you must register with the NCAA for eligibility. It goes off your grades, off your SAT scores, and so that you're eligible to play when you get there in your freshman year. Financial aid, so we'll just touch briefly on this, really comes in several different formats. The free money, the money that you really want to get a lot of, are scholarships and grants. That's money that does not need to be repaid. So you want as much free money as you can get. Loans, obviously, are the things that we borrow. We have to pay back with interest. There are student loans and parent loans. I want to mention, Students cannot just take unlimited amounts of loans. Back in the day, back in our day in college, we could. And that's why a lot of us are still paying off our student loans. Now the federal government has limited that. They have really capped as a freshman, the most you can take is about $5,500 in a loan for the year as a student. Now, if a parent doesn't qualify because their credit's not good, you can take up into about $9,000 your freshman year, but still just a drop in the bucket as far as money is concerned. So just really be aware of that. Parents can take loans up to the cost of attendance based on their credit. You can also look at private loans, bank loans, etc. Work study. Definitely want to take the option if you have it. It's just a job on campus that's federally funded. The federal government pays you to work on campus. It can help you with your tuition and your bills. You want to apply for scholarships and also for your applications as early as possible. That is, again, as I mentioned, earlier the better, more money available. The FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, is where all financial aid begins. That will open online October 1st for our seniors. Juniors, you don't have to worry about this until October. Even if you think your family will not qualify for federal student aid, please do the FAFSA. Most colleges require it to create their financial aid packages for you. To be qualified for a lot of state grants, any of the state of Maryland money, you must do the FAFSA, including CCBC, free tuition. You have to do the FAFSA. The CSS profile is another financial document that some schools use. They'll let you know if they need that. It's just a more detailed financial document. If we kind of look at costs, you can kind of see where we are versus public and private. Room and boards tends to be about the same, whether it's public or private. Private schools in and out of state don't change. Whether you're a resident or not, that only changes if you're doing a public university. Okay, so most in-state public schools are going to give you that break, significant break into looking for scholarships. Do it now. It's not too late to, or too early. So it's a good time to get on some scholarship websites, FastWeb, Broke Scholar, Unigo, some great sites for some scholarship searches. Reach out to your college counselor at your school. They have lots of opportunities for scholarships. Now's the time if you're a senior to start that. And there are scholarships available for juniors as well. You want even those little scholarships, don't ignore them. They could be books for a semester. Just to touch briefly, community college, CCBC, certainly can do any vocational programs, technical programs, but then also a great option is doing 2 years at CCBC or a community college, getting your credits for your general electives and transferring them to a 4-year school. Maryland public universities, very easy to do. The English class you take at CCBC is the same credit that's offered at Towson. It's just a lot cheaper. So you can do 4 years of college, 2 at CCBC, 2 at the 4-year college. At the end of 4 years, that degree on your wall is from the 4-year institution. That bachelor's degree is from UMD or Towson. And nowhere on it does it say you went to CCBC first. So a great option for you. College Promise is free tuition. We pay a lot of taxes. Maryland is not cheap to live in, as you know. But one of the benefits is a lot of the money goes toward our education system. And one of the programs is free tuition. If you have a 2.3 GPA, this is for seniors, at the end of your senior year, you're a Baltimore County resident, which you are, household income of $150,000 or less, which is a nice hefty income. That's either double, 2 parents or single parent. Use at CCBC, you have to be a full-time student. Your tuition is free. You'll have to pay for books, some fees, supplies, but the tuition is covered. You must do the FAFSA in order to qualify for this program. So as a junior, what should you be doing now? Taking care of your grades. I cannot stress it enough. You just saw with the transcript, what you do in your junior year, it's really your last chance to have your GPA where you'd like it to be. Get involved. We're back in school. Get involved in some activities in and out of school. We were all kind of sitting at home. All of us were at a disadvantage. Now we're back. Get involved in some things. Take on some leadership roles. If you've been in the French club, for 3 years, consider running for president of the French club. Those leadership roles look great. Good relationships with your teachers, you're going to need them for those, recommendation letters. And as we mentioned, starting to do your research, visiting colleges, lots of open houses right now in person. Go ahead and do it. It's not too early. And then if you don't know your school counselor, make sure they know you, because they are going to write you a letter of recommendation. What should I be doing as a senior? Really firming up that list, making sure you have that done. Entering your colleges into your Naviance account, talking to your teachers about writing recommendation letters and logging those in Naviance as well. Visiting with any admissions reps that are coming, any schools that you find interesting or want to find out more about, sign up for those visits. Start your applications. If you have a November 1st deadline and another school that's a December 1st deadline, you need to start on that November 1st application now. You can wait a little bit to do that December 1st application. And again, that FAFSA in October. Okay. All righty. Stop presenting. So I know I went over a lot of information very fast, but I wanted to make sure we gave you as much information in this hour as we could. And I'm not sure if there were questions that came in. Doesn't look like it. If there are any questions, right now, certainly you can put them in the Q&A. And if we don't get to them, we can certainly send out some information to you. Hopefully you found, like this is helpful for you, but I want to really tell you that your people at your school buildings, right? The high school, your high school counselors, your college counselors, they're there to help you through these processes. This is brand new to you. You're going to have a lot of questions. It's a daunting process. So, don't feel afraid to ask questions. Don't freak out. Get help. Don't get frozen. Get the help you need from the counselors. They're there to help you. Every Baltimore County high school has a college counselor position now. And this is our job. It is our job to help you through the application process and with financial aid, mainly working with juniors and seniors. So get the help, get the help that you need. Okay. We really, really appreciate you guys coming out tonight. I hope this was helpful for you. And I look forward to coming again and presenting for you again. And I hope you all have a great evening. Thanks so much.